Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about the disaster that's the Chicago Cubs, the road bump that the White Sox hit, and the last preseason game for the Chicago Bears. Possibly the last time we see Justin Fields play in a while. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. We're less than 2 months away from the start of the season, so you should head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, sign up for tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how have you been, my friend?
I have been swell. How are you?
It's been a little hot for me.
It has been hot. And you know, the last few days I've tried to go on my bike rides and my walks that I usually go on. And boy, it's tough out there. Very humid too.
Yeah. My daughter and my wife were going to meet her friend and the friend's parents at some like play that was outside. My wife's like, do you want to come? And I'm like, it's like 100 degrees. No. Like, no, I don't. Like, it is really hot. I'm going to stay inside.
Well, you know what's funny?
Oh, sorry.
Is that it's worse when you're sitting still. So I agree. Like, that's a good call on your part.
Yeah, I don't like it. But plus, my old laptop died. Like, it was on its way out.
Rip.
And I was like, yeah, I'm going to, let me just keep looking for a good deal on a computer. And then it got to the point where it started to get really hot. It would overheat. I'm like, okay, so I would prop it up so it wasn't flat on a surface, so it had air circulation. I'm like, okay, that works fine. Then my dog knocked it off of the table, and then from there, the only way, when it goes to sleep or shuts down, the only way to get it to restart is to unplug it, take the battery out, remove the RAM, put the RAM back in.
Oh, geez.
And then reinstall the battery, plug it back in, and then cross your fingers.
Yikes. Yeah, that's rough. I remember when my old laptop died, I had it from 2012 to last year, and it was one of those weird things. Well, you know how like batteries die and like they need the charger just to run? Well,
yes.
Like you had to have the cord plugged in because, like the battery just wouldn't hold. You had to have it plugged in. So you had to have like the cord plugged in, but like at a certain angle or else it wouldn't connect or charge. It was very weird.
Yeah. So I got I went to Best Buy. I was like, okay, there's a Best Buy walking distance from my house. And I pick out a computer. I'm like, okay, this seems to be what I want. And they were like, do you want to finance it? Interest-free financing for a year or two or whatever. I'm like, sure. And then I'm there for 10 minutes trying to get it to work. And they were like, well, it seems like you have another account. I'm like, well, I did. Like from, I bought a TV the year the Bears lost to the Carolina Panthers in the playoffs. So like
2005?
Yeah. So I bought a TV, and that was the last thing I bought. And they were like, well, it's linked to that account. And I was like, well, can we update the account then? And they're like, well, that takes a week to do. I'm like, well, I need the laptop today. And then I'm like, screw this. I'm going to go somewhere else just because I was annoyed. And then I went somewhere else, and They were very helpful, and I got a computer even cheaper. I'm like, okay. So now I have a new computer.
Well, at least you eventually got one. Man, when you mentioned that Bears lost the playoffs in 2005, who was it that went off against the Bears? It was a receiver.
Steve Smith Sr.
Yes, thank you. And that was at home too.
Yeah, what do you have? 212 yards receiving that game?
Something crazy like that. I mean, it wasn't like a blowout, but man, losing at home in the first round, which has happened quite a bit before. I mean, it happened in 2001, it happened in 2005, and it happened in 2018.
Yeah. So, I bought a TV, and that clearly they were like, well, we closed your account, but it's still active. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's either closed or it's still active. Can't be both.
Yeah, right. That's weird.
Yeah. So Best Buy. But yesterday we had our third and final Bears preseason game, and it was one where Justin Fields started the game and played half of the game. And there was a lot of good and a lot of bad in this game. Let's dive in. At first, I want to talk about the play of Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think what you saw?
Well, what I saw was just kind of a scheme that wasn't really allowing him to be flashy, and he was getting pressure early on. So he didn't do much spectacular outside the touchdown pass. I mean, that was a great play, but it seemed more like a conservative type scheme, and there really wasn't much to say, oh my God, this is amazing outside the touchdown catch, but I can't necessarily say not much happened because Justin Fields played bad. It's not like he was throwing interceptions or throwing in the dirt. It's just, there wasn't a whole lot going on offensively. And, at least he made that one touchdown pass, because that was a thing of beauty to Jesper Horsted. That was a perfect ball in a perfect spot. That was an elite throw that not a lot of Bears quarterbacks could make. I think you look at Justin Fields' play in Tennessee and you go, hey, just kind of went out there and, it wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't anything terrible. You can point to a number of different reasons for that, but, at least he didn't get hurt. That was one of my big takeaways. He didn't get hurt.
Justin Fields, that throw for the touchdown to Jesper Horsted was an absolutely phenomenal play on his part. And then when I heard him talk about it later, it was even better, because did you hear his quote about it?
No, I didn't.
So he's like, well, I recognized that it was going to be man coverage and that he would have his back to Horsted. So I knew I could throw it in that window and it wouldn't get intercepted. So not only did he make that amazing throw, but he recognized that it was going to be man coverage and knew where to go with it.
A Bears quarterback with a high IQ. I love it.
I love it because to me, I watched a guy who felt very comfortable and knew what his role was in this game. It was just to get some reps, and he slid when he ran and stayed in bounds, or just ran out of bounds. Didn't do anything to get himself hurt. Made some nice throws and just played within the system. And I was very happy with that. He looked comfortable. He didn't look like he was lost. He recognized where things were. That for me was a big positive.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, it was a more conservative play calling, which, in game 3 of the preseason is whatever. And he didn't try to do too much. So yeah, he's not going to light up the score sheet like some people would look at, but you know what? Stats in the preseason really don't mean jack. And the fact that he was out there looking decently comfortable, making that great throw, that it gives you some confidence that not only can he make big time throws, but he can play the game smartly. if he's not trying to do anything well too crazy that can risk anything. Of course, there's no risk in terms of game strategy in preseason, but you don't want him getting hurt or, risking another injury for him or somebody else. So, just for him to go in, do his thing, then come out, it's like, okay, that's fine. And you know what? We can just keep dissecting that amazing touchdown throw to Horsted, because that was obviously the play of the game in terms of a Justin Fields throw. And, the other thing too about the way the offense was going, or, lack thereof, the first half, the offense wasn't looking too spectacular, but it was kind of nice to see them at least try to establish a bit more of a running game. I'm glad that they were using the backs a little bit more, because look, that's going to be important this year, whether it's Andy Dalton or Justin Fields under center. The importance of a run game is huge. And we saw that at the end of last year. So it was at least nice that they were trying to get some, reps in with the running backs in there. Obviously David Montgomery wasn't in the game, but you saw some of the other guys get in there. So just trying to have some sort of a run game, you like to see it.
I liked that they tried to do it. It's all of their runs are coming from a shotgun offense. And it is a running back from the standstill suddenly having to accelerate, and you have an offensive line that's not getting any push.
Yeah.
That's just a really bad recipe. At least when you're going from under center, your running back has momentum and he's getting the ball a little sooner. He can hit the hole harder. So even when there's not a hole there, he can push forward for a couple yards. But from the way that Matt Nagy runs the offense, that offensive line, if it's not doing well, it's just a disaster. And that's what we really saw. I mean, Williams ran 5 times for 11 yards, so 2.2 average. And Herbert ran 5 times for 10 yards, so a 2-yard average. That's not good enough.
Yeah, the results certainly weren't there. Like I said, I was glad that they were trying to do it, but to your point, it wasn't really moving very much. And what was it on 4th down? They tried to run, and I believe it was a shotgun formation on 4th down, and sure enough, he got stuffed like a yard short.
Yeah. Then, when the one series where they went for it on 4th, they didn't get it on 3rd, and they went for it on 4th and didn't get it. That was so bad, because that's all on Matt Nagy. He has these run plays that are so slow to develop. When you need to get those short yards, everybody knows you're running it. So if you're not going to fake them out and do something, either sweep to the outside or a short pass or a long pass, if you're actually going to run it straight up the gut, then you better have that play develop fast, because you're going to have defensive linemen and linebackers and defensive backs all swarming in to to try to blow up any hole that's there. And if you have a slow developing play and running backs that, when they realize there's no hole there, start dancing, it's dead. It's not going to happen. You don't have the momentum to push forward. At least when you're going from under center, or you have a faster developing play, the running back is coming with momentum. So even if they get hit, there's an opportunity possibly to spin and fall forward, or, to drive and get that momentum and take it that extra yard. But when you have a running back that's got to get up to speeds from a standstill, and there's no hole and there's already penetration, what are they going to do? You're leaving them, in a spot where all they can do is fail. And that's on Matt Nagy. That's all on Matt Nagy.
I mean, it's a good point. It really, really is, because you could go back and look at the tape from yesterday and you saw multiple instances of that. I mean, you just read the stats. When you touch the ball 5 times and you can't even get 20 plus yards, that's not something you like to see. Because as I was watching, the first time, I'm like, all right, they're using the run. They're at least trying to use the run, even when it wasn't getting results. But I'm like, wow, they're actually trying to run the ball here. So Are they actually going to do this in the regular season? Are they actually going to implement the run when they need to? Well, to your point, they need to make sure it's effective. And, I understand that Dave Montgomery wasn't in the game, but, you make a very valid point about that. And we've seen how slow run plays have developed with Matt Nagy's, even in 2018. You remember in 2018, there was a lot of issue with the run, and you had a guy in Jordan Howard who back-to-back years, the previous 2 years before 2018, rushed for over 1,000 yards, and then everything was very slow developing in 2018. You're like, wow, is Jordan Howard really that slow? And, maybe part of it was just the scheme of it. The line blocking for the run hasn't really been great under Matt Nagy, but, I mean, to your point, if the scheme isn't perfect for a run play, then you're going to see a lot of those slow developing plays. And we've seen way too much of that.
Yeah. Look at New England, who plays a lot from, at least they played a lot from the shotgun, use short passes as a run game. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to hand it off. It's all it is you use the run to set up the pass and you use pass to set up the run. You got to have the balance. So the defense is always guessing at what you're going to do, and you're not limiting their guesses. You want to have that full spectrum of things you could do at any moment. And when you get one-dimensional or predictable, it makes it a lot easier for the defense. So with the way the Bears do things is, you want to be able to get, it doesn't matter per se that you're handing the ball off. It's that you have the short yardage, quick plays that can net you yards. So short passes are a substitute for the run game. And that's what we saw with Bill Belichick in New England. And it works. It works. It's Matt Nagy needs to be more open with what he's willing to do. And my problem with Matt Nagy, and I was really in full force. I think I had my most liked tweet in a while about Matt Nagy, but his inability to self-reflect. He'll judge others, but he can't look and be like, oh, hey, here's where the flaws are in my play calling. It's always, well, the players aren't doing my system right. But at some point, why don't you consider the possibility that no matter who you put in there, the system's not going to do well? If you've seen when all the opponents we're playing against in the preseason, they bring in other players, their offense just like a whistle doesn't change. I mean, we saw a 12th string quarterback in yesterday, and they just had their full arsenal of offense. And the Bears we need to have this perfect player and this perfect player in order to end multiple years. That just seems to me that there's a flaw in what Matt Nagy's system is. And I think a lot of it is his actual play calling. We saw it operate a lot better, not great, but a lot better when Bill Lazor was calling the plays.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at other teams with other elite coaches where, they don't necessarily need the fanciest toys. They just use them in the right system, like Bill Belichick, and they make it work. You know what I thought about the offense yesterday? The second half, which was all Nick Foles under center. That was probably the smoothest we've seen the offense run. Obviously, I'm not saying Nick Foles has had the best quarterback play, because we've seen Justin Fields make the best plays under center. But in terms of just the way the offense moved, the way it was, being called, the way it was schemed, it actually flowed like an actual offense. Yes, I know it's schlubs versus schlubs, but they were actually able to move the ball with Nick Foles. And it not like that really matters. Nick Foles is going to be your third string quarterback anyway, but It's just an observation.
Nick Foles, it's weird. We were like, oh, Nick Foles is going to get traded to the Eagles. They need or the Jets or the Colts. Like, these are 3 teams that desperately need a Nick Foles. And they went and got somebody else. And I don't know if it's because Nick Foles is poisoning the well or if we just have a bogus GM.
Well, I mean, Nick Foles is making a lot of money. So,
You're going to have to eat the money no matter what. So
he's making a lot of money and he's coming off a really blah year last year and the year before that. I mean, let's face it, he's making a lot of money for a guy that has not played well he hasn't played well since the Super Bowl in 2017.
All right, well, let's put it this way. Is Nick Foles was making a lot of money, a lot more than Gardner Minshew, and the Bears not only paid the money, but paid more in draft capital than the Eagles paid for Gardner Minshew. That screams to me that Ryan Pace got fleeced.
Well, Ryan Pace was also much more desperate, which could result in the fleecing. Obviously, that can happen. Desperate times call for that kind of thing. I mean, the Eagles still seem like they're in on Jalen Hurts. They just wanted to bring somebody else in the quarterback room, where Ryan Pace 2 years ago was looking for the solution after Mitch Trubisky did not look good. And he's like, oh, look, there is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a recent Super Bowl winning quarterback. So, yeah, you could say Ryan Pace's move was dumb, and it probably was. I'm just saying one situation was more desperate than the other.
I mean, I get that. Why can't how many years has Ryan Pace been here? I get when you first come in, but after you've been here like 7 years, why is everything you're in a position of desperation?
Well, I mean, that just sums up the Bears. I mean, the fact that it requires brain surgery to do the smallest things. It's 3rd and 4 and you need a first down. It feels like it is just absolute agony and so much unnecessary work to try to get a first down that you oftentimes end up not getting. And, it's the same thing with the front office. You need to fill a hole. Let's overpay this guy. Let's bring in this guy. And then let's trade draft capital for this guy. I mean, look how much money you gave Jimmy Graham when you needed to fill in the tight end position. Jimmy Graham was an aging guy in Green Bay who wasn't performing very well, and you gave him a crap ton of money. This year, before you draft Justin Fields, Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton didn't play well last year. Let's give him a massive raise. Let's overpay him. It's like Ryan Pace goes out there thinking that he's just trying to get ahead of the game. You got to get ahead of the game. You got to get ahead of the game. How many people do you think were going to be entering a bidding war for an older Jimmy Graham and an older Andy Dalton when he overpaid them?
Jimmy Graham, that was just an absolute boneheaded issue. Andy Dalton was Ryan Pace, again, had himself in a position where he had to overpay because of the pickle he put himself in. I can't say this for certain. Here's my view of what happened with Andy Dalton. Is he identified he was probably the best realistic option to be the starter. And I think he probably assumed that he wasn't going to be able to get one of those top tier guys, and that it would probably be one of those second tier guys who probably is going to have to sit a year or two to get up to speed of the game. So he needed somebody that could be a starter, that had been a starter, that had some sort of resume. And you looked at Dallas, and Dallas came in as we have a starting quarterback. And nobody else was calling Andy Dalton to be a starter the previous year. They came to him and said, we'll make you a high-paid backup or a decent paid backup. That was the only option he had. But when the Bears came in the next year and You look at that roster, he was literally, it was him and Nick Foles. Yeah. If you're his agent, you can say, no, if we're looking like we're going to be the starter, you're going to name us the starter. You got to at least have us in the ballpark of starter money. And if you don't, we can take backup money anywhere. And so the Bears are like, well, crap. If he's going to take backup money to go somewhere else, maybe for the opportunity to win a ring, then, you've got to overpay him. You put yourself in that position to have to pay him low end starter money, period. And that, he painted himself into that corner, and that's, where the corner is now.
Which, that could be valid. That's a fair argument. That is.
And it doesn't let Ryan Pace off the hook. It's just
he made that mess.
He made the mess, and it's the reality of the mess he made.
Right. I mean, I get your point. I do. And maybe that is how it happened. But my question was, yeah, they could have signed backup money somewhere, but who was really in on him? I mean, couldn't have Andy Dalton, just said, I don't want to be a backup. I want to be a starter. I mean, I don't know if he actually did feel that way. I can't help but wonder to see how it all went down, because what did Andy Dalton make in Dallas? Like $4 million?
I think so.
And look, I get it. You're going to get more money if you're going to be a starting quarterback. I get that. It just, it was a significant jump. It was a significant jump, but I do agree. It's a bit more understandable from that standpoint to the money they gave Jimmy Graham, because
Jimmy Graham number was inexcusable.
It's ridiculous.
You could have, that's the thing is the Bears identify somebody and they're like, well, I have to have them. And I don't care what it costs. And, smarter GMs, they leverage the situation that they're in. They put themselves in a position where they don't have to get stuck, where they don't get emotionally invested. You go, hey, listen, yeah, I would like to have Andy Dalton as a starter, or I would like to have Jimmy Graham, but here's the number I'm comfortable for Jimmy Graham. Oh, you want 2-year, $14 million? We'll give you 2-year, I don't know, $8 million. Or make it incentive based. Make him earn it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. If you want that money, it's incentive based. And you get X amount if you play all 16 games. You get X amount if you have over 600 yards receiving, blah, blah, whatever. And make them realistic. Whereas if he has a stellar season, he hits all those numbers. You're like, okay, earned it. We can deal with it if he earned it. But they didn't. They gave it to him straight up guaranteed, and then for the first year, and then gave him the second year. And I don't know why. Like, it sort of puts you in a financial pickle of you either had to get rid of Jimmy Graham or you had to get rid of Charles Leno. And now I screamed up and down, Charles Leno needed to be upgraded. But you didn't upgrade. You drafted a guy we don't know when he's going to play. And then you had to go and get a 39-year-old guy from the side of the road while he was fishing to replace Charles Leno. So did you upgrade him? I don't know.
I mean, in terms of being able to perform, we don't know. In terms of just IQ and resume, obviously, I mean, Jason Peters is going to be in the Hall of Fame, but he's 39 years old. Is he in good shape? Can he stay healthy? We don't know. At least with Charles Leno, he was going to play. He wasn't great. He was average at best, but he was always in there. You could rely on him being there. Whereas with Jason Peters, he's a former All-Pro, Pro Bowl, future Hall of Famer. We don't know how much he's going to play. we don't, I don't know what shape he's in, but, you just got to hope that he can hold down the fort. And just looking at the Jimmy Graham contract, I mean, it's normal for a casual fan to say, oh, why would you cut him? He had a good year last year. Yeah, he did. He was a good red zone target, but he's going to be 35 this year. And a 35-year-old tight end is a $10 million cap hit. And right now, looking at your tight ends, you have Cole Kmet as your number one. You brought in Jesse James. Jimmy Graham could do some good things for you on the field this year, but at this point, you can replace that for a hell lot cheaper to clear some cap space. If this was Jimmy Graham of 8 years ago, that's a different story, but it's not. He's 34 going on 35.
He's 34 going on 45. And the offensive line, you're right. Jason Peters has the brain to be able to know offensive line inside and out. And we saw a play where he gave up a big pressure, but you go back and watch it, and he really got put in a pickle because there was an inside guy coming in that was coming in free. And when you look at it, you're like, well, he made the right choice. It was a no-win situation for him. It's if he takes the man that he was supposed to block, then the inside guy goes in and makes the sack. But, knowing offensive line play, if you have a free guy going inside, you always block the inside guy because the outside guy has a farther distance to go. And that's what he correctly did. It's the line play. And part of it might be just they haven't played together and you got to gel. The other part of it is, just individual play hasn't been very good. I was excited about having Sam Mustafar because the offensive line played a lot better when he stepped into center last year.
Mm-hmm.
But he hasn't improved. He's, I wish they would have had more competition for him because he is regressing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons of concern with the line. I mean, you look at a fully healthy Bears line on paper with Tevin Jenkins in there, you say, okay, that should be pretty good, but there's a lot of issues right now, and it is concerning. And the next time we're going to see them in action is week 1 against the Rams in Los Angeles.
And that Rams defensive line is going to have a field day.
It's a nasty one. That's for sure.
So it's a little frustrating because what I envision happening is we've seen Matt Nagy, his offense just sputter. And every half, it takes him until the second half to even get anything going.
Yeah.
Or at least till the end of the second quarter to get anything going. And that really puts you in a pickle.
Like nothing.
Yeah, that really puts you in a pickle because I could see the Bears falling behind real quick against the Rams. And then suddenly he abandons the run and it's pass city. And then Andy Dalton starts throwing interceptions. And then the boo birds come out, rightfully so, calling for Justin Fields. And I feel bad for Andy Dalton. He's in a shit situation.
Yes, he is.
Matt Nagy looks in the mirror and he sees, Andy Reid or some other offensive genius. But in reality, you look and he should be, if he correctly looks in the mirror, he should be seeing Bozo the Clown. He is a terrible play caller. He's terrible. And
like I've said the past 3 years, I like him as the head coach, not as a play caller or coordinator.
I don't know how short that leash is going to be, if that leash is getting pulled. If I'm Ryan Pace, and I know how dangerously close I am to losing my job, I have him on a short leash, and if that offense sucks, I go in there, snatch him up, be like, Bill Lazor is starting to call plays in game. Deal with it.
He's going to throw a bozo bucket at him.
He's going to come in there like Wizzo.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you could point to every single Bears game this preseason. First quarter, the offense has just been absolutely disastrous. And we've seen the first quarter offense have both Justin Fields and Andy Dalton, and it hasn't made much of a difference. I mean, you remember the first drive in the Tennessee game, you had 2 runs, and the first pass play, he was sacked for like a loss of 5-some yards. Like, he didn't have any time to look downfield. He was already down.
It's just infuriating to watch.
But what wasn't infuriating to watch, and I wanted to really talk about this from yesterday's game, was Jesper Horsted. That guy had a night. And I got to ask you this question. It's a question I think a lot of people are asking. Did he just play himself to the roster as the 4th tight end with that game?
I think he was the 4th tight end anyway, but I think he really cemented any opportunity anybody else had.
Yeah, I mean, I would have chosen him over JP Holtz probably, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
You're keeping Cole Kmet, obviously. Jesse James has looked great, and Jesper Horsted came in and, had a hell of a night. And it's not the first time he had in a preseason game last year had a great game too. I don't remember which one. I have to go back and look, but he's getting better. So I think it's just, he's really cemented himself, because if you try to sneak him onto, I think if you try to sneak him through the waivers and get him on the practice squad, you're going to lose him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Jesper Horsted, you look at his night, 5 recorded catches, 104 yards, 3 touchdowns, was targeted all 5 times. So 5 for 5, 104 yards, 3 touchdowns, impressive stuff. That one-handed grab from Nick Foles, that was a thing of beauty. And I mean, we talked about the Justin Fields touchdown pass. Remember, Jesper Horsted had that really nice catch in the Lions Thanksgiving game in 2019, kind of in a similar fashion. Obviously, it was in the end zone, but it was kind of like he had to reach up with one hand and pull it down. So, yeah, I think he should make the roster. I have written out my guest 53-man roster. I don't know if you have one yet, but I put him as my 4th tight end.
Yeah, I haven't, but I could easily go through this. I mean, it's pretty clear. But I mean, one thing I do want to say about the roster is you almost painted yourself in a corner with Nick Foles, because if you really wanted to trade him, why didn't you have a 4th quarterback on the roster?
Yeah, where's Tyler Bray? Where's our man Tyler Bray? He's
gone. He was a free agent. I don't even know where he went. But you should have got an undrafted rookie, somebody that you could develop, that could go on the practice squad if need be. If this was, as it stands, if you were to trade Nick Foles, which I think at this point, unless you have something catastrophic happen between now and the start of the season, Nick Foles is on your team.
Yep.
And if you were to trade him, then you have 2 quarterbacks. You don't even have an emergency quarterback. You have 2 quarterbacks, because if Andy Dalton gets hurt, then suddenly, we know who the starter will be, Justin Fields, but then who backs up Justin Fields?
I would say Tariq Cohen, but he's hurt.
He is on the PUP list, and Lord knows when he's going to be available.
Screw it. Make Khalil Mack your backup quarterback.
I mean, we saw what happened in Denver when they had no quarterback. Doesn't look good for your offense.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You know what was also funny about yesterday's game was just watching the way the Bears and the Titans played each other kind of aggressively. Like you saw that, it was kind of somewhat of a ticky-tacky call. I can't remember who it was, but he got his head slammed down and they called the unnecessary roughness.
Adams got slammed down. And that, I agreed with the flag. I don't think it was intentional.
No, it wasn't.
But he was trying to bring him down, didn't have a good position, it lifted him, and the way it came down was a body slam. They've made it abundantly clear body slamming is a penalty. It's kind of like now, remember when there used to be 5 and 15-yard face masks? There was the incidental. Now, if you touch the face mask, it's 15 yards. Even if you don't tackle them by it, if you just if you put your hand in there and let go and it doesn't even yank at the person's neck, it's 15 yards. And you can be like, oh, that's ticky-tack. It's the rule. That's the thing. And so I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was dirty. But by the rule, it was a penalty.
Yeah, it was. It just, it's sometimes it's a real judgment call with those kind of things. And, I'm just glad nobody was hurt in the game. Nobody of note was hurt in the game, or anybody really was. So, that was when I was watching this, I'm like, there's not a lot of starters in this game, but you just hope the ones that are in there don't get hurt. And luckily, we didn't see any significant injuries. And it was also just weird seeing Matt Barkley still play. I didn't even know he was still playing. And,
he's not that old, but it's just, he's not that good either.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I remember when he was starting games for the Bears in 2016, when they lost Jay Cutler and lost Brian Hoyer. I'm like, wow, is it the Matt Barkley revenge game? But he didn't go off like Mitch Trubisky did against the half-assing starting defense of the Chicago Bears like last week. So I thought that was kind of funny seeing him again. And it's like, man, you look at who was on the field for Tennessee, and they have that big COVID issue right now, including Ryan Tannehill. So you didn't see any of him, and you didn't see any.
I was really nervous about this game because I was like, man, if the Bears get a COVID outbreak because they're playing the Titans who have a COVID outbreak, that's just going to be a disaster for the league, for the Bears.
Yeah, especially if it's a preseason game,
The last preseason game.
Yeah, the last preseason game where you're just kind of getting through it, making sure everyone stays healthy and gets ready for week one. But, hopefully we won't have to worry about anything. What was nice yesterday, too, even though, it's the competition's a competition, it's cool to see Danny Trevathan get a pick and see a few turnovers by the Bears defense.
The Bears defense. So they were playing against the starting offensive line for the Titans, and they have one of the better offensive lines in football. And the Bears, for the most part, had their second string defensive front in, and they were getting all kinds of pressure. I like that. It was Danny Goldman. It was
Danny Goldman.
Danny Glover. It was Eddie Goldman and the second string rest of the defensive line, and they were getting all kinds of pressure. Travis Gibson was in there all night long eating their lunch.
Yeah, he was looking good last night. And what have we said before on this show? When you're getting pressure on the quarterback, your secondary is going to do better.
Yep. He was the reason that we got the pick six. And you saw some really good play from the front seven. The defensive backs up and down all night. Duke Shelley had a rough night. Thomas Graham had that one play where it was a touchdown that he should have known better. But he played it well until the throw went off, and then he somehow missed that. Oh, I had inside coverage. That guy couldn't go inside. The only place that could go is outside, and he didn't play that. It was just a boneheaded play. Where he had some heads up plays, but Duke Shelley did not look so good. And I'm wondering how that's going to fare with him making this roster.
Yeah, I mean, on my projected roster, I still have him making it. But yeah, you hope that could get cleaned up a little bit for the regular season. Speaking of cleaning up, I don't want to praise the Bears for being spotless last night with penalties because they weren't. But boy, you compare last night to the Buffalo game, it was a hell lot cleaner last night than it was 2 weeks ago.
It was just speaking of penalties. I was watching a little bit of the Jacksonville versus Cowboys preseason game today.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one play that Jacksonville was moving the ball on Dallas's defense, and then the quarterback fumbled it. Just like
Was it Trevor Lawrence?
No. This was in the third quarter of the game. So
okay.
It was, there's some guy that's probably not going to make the team. Maybe the third string guy.
Yeah.
He fumbled the ball, and I was only half paying attention. I think it was on a bad exchange, and the defensive lineman, didn't realize the ball was out, kicked it. So it went back about 15 yards, and the running back for the Jaguars covered it up. So it ended up being second and like 25 or something ridiculous. And then immediately after they go to play the second down, and there's a false start on the offense. So another 5 yards back. You're like, oh man, and then they picked up a couple of yards, and then it ended up being third and something ridiculous, like 25, 22. And they threw like a little pass. The guy breaks one tackle, and he had multiple other people. There's no way he was going to get this first down. And the defender tackled him by the face mask. Automatic first down. And I'm like, man, that is just not having awareness. Is, if you're going to not tackle him, at least grab his jersey and just hang on for dear life. Slow him down until somebody else comes in, because they're not going to get that first down unless there's a penalty. And it's just, and it's still, I don't think that 15 yards was enough to get the first down, but face mask is an automatic first down. So it's, it could have been third and 102, and it was still going to be first down. And you're just like, that's what I worry about. And, the Bears defense seems more, relating this to the Bears defense seems a lot more with it and prepared mentally so far under Sean Desai.
Yeah, and you like to see that. You really do, because there is nothing worse than just killing all your momentum with defensive penalties. I mean, really, you make a big stop and you end up getting called for a face mask or a DPI. You haven't seen nearly as much of that this preseason, whereas the offensive penalties, we've seen plenty of those.
Yeah. But the defense seems much more engaged, much more intense, and seems to be much more aware of situations. And granted, we're only 3 preseason games in, but I do like where they're going, and it makes me feel like if they're going to lose, it's going to be on the back of Ryan Pace not giving the talent in the secondary, rather than having all the talent and just not playing well.
Yeah, I mean, really my only concern in the front seven is Robert Quinn going to be productive this year? I mean, you look at the rest of the front seven, you trust Khalil Mack. I guess you could say Akeem Hicks is a bit of concern because the last 2 years he's dealt with health issues, but as a player, like just as based on pure talent, you don't worry about Akeem Hicks. He's one of the more underrated guys in the NFL. You have Eddie Goldman back. That's huge. That really is. Bilal Nichols can, take that spot nicely. Solid player. Danny Trevathan, he's older. He's not as quick, but we saw the slowness kind of bother his play for a while, but it seemed like he adjusted after a little bit, which is good.
I think it wasn't so much an adjustment. I think he was still recovering from that injury. And
Well, I
He
mean, that's
worked
kind of what I'm
through it.
saying. He healed, he got back in the game, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not the same speed level guy, but he looks better. And you also saw them bring in Alec Ogletree, so I feel like that is an insurance policy should
Yeah.
he get injured or not be able to play well.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to do is I have my projected 35-man roster written down in front of me.
53-man roster?
What did I say?
35.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a dooey moment. 53 man. Read it backwards.
All right. You want to start by position or do you want to go?
Let's go by position.
All right. Let's start quarterback.
Dalton, Fields, Foles.
Agree.
Easy. Wide receiver, Robinson, Mooney, Goodwin, Adams, Newsome, Bird. 6 guys.
Yeah, I'm going Robinson, Mooney, Goodwin, Bird, Newsome. I think they're going to get this wrong. I think it should be Adams. I think they're going to keep Ridley.
You know, I was a pro Riley Ridley guy for a while, but the preseason for him has not looked all that spectacular.
I think Rodney Adams has earned it and deserves it. Hopefully they give it to him.
If you go based on camp and preseason, I think Rodney Adams does too. So, running backs, obviously we'll see what happens with Cohen, but let's say Cohen is healthy. It would be Montgomery, Williams, Cohen, and Herbert. If it's not Cohen, you would put in Ryan Nall.
Tariq Cohen's going to start on the pup list. I think he hasn't even practiced yet.
Yeah.
So there's no way they're going to have him ready and they're going to put him on the pup list. And so I think it's going to be Montgomery, Williams, Herbert. I think it's Artavis Pierce.
Okay. I mean, whether it's Pierce or not, it's not like you're looking to replace your number one guy. As long as you have Montgomery and Williams healthy, that'll be big for you. And, I think Khalil Herbert can be a potentially nice number 3 back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
kind of like what he brings.
I mean, whoever that 4th running back is going to get, they're going to get cut once you bring back Tariq Cohen.
Tariq Cohen, yeah, exactly. So whether it's Nall or whatever, you need to have a 4th back, and you'll have and it's not like the 4th back is going to get a lot of touches before Tariq Cohen comes back, because obviously when Tariq Cohen comes back, you're going to use him more as a gadget guy and a special teamer.
Right.
Tight ends, we kind of talked about this. Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, Jesse James, and Jesper Horsted.
I think that's the correct 4.
Set in stone. I think it's pretty set in stone.
It should be. Be because here's my thing is you can get a JP Holtz through waivers and get him on a practice squad if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get Jesper Horsted through after what he just showed.
Right. Offensive lineman. Now, what I read was, this is my understanding. If Tevin Jenkins comes back this year, in order for him to be eligible, he has to make the roster first before he goes on the injured reserve. That's my understanding. So I'll include him extra on this list. And then once he's on the roster and then he goes on injured reserve, they'll bring in somebody else. But my offensive linemen are Whitehair, Daniels, Peters, Mustafa, Wilkinson, Bars, Jermaine Ifedi, Simmons, Barome, and then Jenkins before he goes on injured reserve.
Probably. That's probably right.
Defensive linemen, Hicks, Goldman, Nichols, Tonga, Edwards Jr., Blackson.
Probably. Yeah. I don't see any issues with that.
And now we have linebackers: Mack, Trevathan, Smith, Quinn, Gibson, Jones, Ogletree, Ilinimbuwe.
I don't know if they're going to keep. I think they're going to keep 4 inside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers. I think it's going to be Mac, Robert Quinn, Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, Travis Gibson, Jeremiah Tauchu, Christian Jones, and Ogletree.
Yeah, I was between Ilinimbuwe. I can't pronounce his name.
Iwebinaway.
I can never pronounce his name. Inibinue. But the reason I put him on was because I know we can play special teams. So that was a coin flip for me. I mean, if he didn't make the roster, I wouldn't be surprised. That's just the reason I put him on there.
Yeah. The one thing with Christian Jones kind of makes him, I think, make this roster is his ability. If you had to, you could put him as an edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's an inside guy. Same thing with James Waters. Like, I think you could get away. So those kind of give them a little flexibility.
Yeah, which is nice. I mean, you have your exact idea who your inside and outside starters are going to be. I mean, you're going to have Mac, you're going to have Trevathan, you're going to have Roquan Smith, you're going to have Robert Quinn, and you're going to have Gibson. Those are like the ones that are absolutely set in stone. And I think Alec Ogletree is a really safe bet.
What I'm excited about is Khalil Mack this year. That the feeling is that Sean Desai is going to just not just line him up on the left side or the right side, but they're going to line up Khalil Mack over whoever is the weakest link on the offensive line and just try to exploit mismatches.
Good.
And
let him eat.
I'm excited about that is because if you find a weak link, and that's what the Rams do with that maniac in the middle, is they'll line him up on the outside, they'll line him up on the inside just to get him somewhere where he's going to just wreak the most havoc.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like that's what you got to do with him, man. I mean, look at the last few years. Even when he's been getting triple teamed and people are like, where's Khalil Mack? He's not doing anything. The numbers are still really good. If you can mix and match him better, I think you could see more of a 2018 type Khalil Mack. And we know how good that is.
If you look at the advanced metrics, he's been great.
Yeah.
Even if the stack numbers are only 9, he has been great. And, if you could add pressure from the other side and be able to position him, put him in a position to get to the quarterback a little better, I think you'll see better results.
Yeah, I think so too. So my cornerbacks: Johnson, Vildor, Burns, Trufant, Shelley, Graham Jr.
Ooh, that Duke Shelley one.
I still think he makes the roster personally, but we'll see, I guess. He's a familiar face.
He is. You got to see more out of him. I'm gonna go Trey Roberson over him.
All right.
But everybody else I agree with.
Okay. Safeties: Eddie Jackson, Gibson Jr. or Senior, I should say. Bush and Houston Carson.
Yeah, it sucks. I think Marquis Christian has played well. But I don't think he's played well enough to make this roster.
Yeah. Again, Houston Carson's, you're familiar with him.
Yeah, and he plays special teams. Deion Bush, I think, is he was going to be your starter until you brought back Sean Gibson.
Yeah, Bush is a fine option, not a number one, but
No,
he's all right.
I think he's fine.
Yeah. And then lastly, your special teamers, Santos, O'Donnell's, Scales.
You're not going to have Brian Johnson?
What, the singer of AC/DC? Hey, to Brian Johnson's credit, though, he's kicked pretty well. But
yeah,
sorry, dude.
It's funny. We went for so long not able to find anybody that could kick, and then we find a kicker, and then we find another guy who can kick too.
Yeah. Could we just have them both as kickers? No, just kidding. You don't want to carry two kickers. But hey, good for them.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see when the Bears have to be down to 53.
I mean, while you're looking at that, I mean, it's pretty obvious based on your opinions and my opinions, outside of a few bubble depth guys, the roster is pretty much set in stone, and there's not a lot of mystery here. And look, I don't think that the Chicago media can really do much more to try to create a story between Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. Andy Dalton's the starter week one. It's going to be Andy Dalton unless he's sick or injured. I don't think anything is going to change that.
It looks like Tuesday at 3:00 is the deadline.
This Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
So that is the it's 3:00 Kansas City time, because I'm on a Kansas City website, but I think they're the same time zone as us. But either way, it's the right ballpark. So Tuesday afternoon, we'll have to cut downs, and usually they announce those things in waves.
Yeah. Again, it's really the bubble guys are all you're waiting on. Everyone else, is or will not make the roster. Pretty much, I'd say 85, 90% of what the roster is going to be at this point.
Yeah. And then we have to wait a while for the Bears to play, because we'll have to go through the whole slate of Sunday games, and then there's Sunday night.
Yeah, there's Sunday night football, correct? Not Monday night.
Correct. Sunday night.
Yeah.
September 12th. So we got about 2 more weeks. And right now, the Rams are favored by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
That's yeah, I mean, they are away, so they are playing in Los Angeles, and it is the Rams are a much improved team, and the Bears are not. I would be shocked if it is only a 7-point loss.
Well, you know how I see it going? It's going to be one of those games where it's close through most of it, kind of like the playoff game last year, where it's halftime and the Bears might only be down like 13-7, and you're like, okay, you're within reach. And then the defense is going to get tired. The offense can't do anything. So the defense is on the field most of the time. And, eventually the Rams are going to start picking apart tired guys, and they're going to end up running away with it. That's kind of how I see it going.
I don't know. That Rams team with a real quarterback behind them, it's going to be tough. I mean,
it's going to be tough.
I don't think they're going to score 40 points, but that Bears offense is not doing anybody any favors.
No, it's not. But I'm not saying, like I said, maybe they'll have a touchdown by halftime. I think the defense is good enough and know Matt Stafford well enough to kind of keep him at bay for a little bit before they get tired and before Sean McVay makes some adjustments, and so does the rest of the team. I think it's going to be one of those nights where the score looks lopsided, but it was at least close for a while. That's just my prediction.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see indeed. Maybe we'll all be shocked when Andy Dalton throws a game-winning touchdown with 1:30 left and they win 28-24 or something. I don't know.
Should we talk a little baseball here?
Yeah, I mean, with the White Sox, we'll talk about what's on the field, but I have some big thoughts on the Cubs not on the field.
Um, you know, the Cubs pitching fucking sucks.
That's putting it lightly. Yes.
I mean, and the Cubs as a team, if the Cubs wouldn't on, what was it, Friday when they lost after scoring 6 in the first inning?
Yeah, 17-13. It was like the Chicago Cardinals and the Chicago Bears playing each other on the South Side.
If the Cubs wouldn't have scored those last 3 runs, it would have been the second time this season that they scored 6 or more runs in the first inning and lost by 7 runs.
So shout out to my friend Ryan, big Cub fan. He was messaging me after the first inning. He's like, yo, dude, we just scored 6 runs. And I said, dude, they're going to lose this game. Don't celebrate. It's like, nah, come on, man. We got this. It's all good. And I said, dude, we are losing this game. I said, this is going to be just like Milwaukee. You know what I'm talking about when I say that, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough,
Gary texted me after right before the game. He was like, $5 says that the Cubs sweep this series. And he texted me after the first inning. He's like, see, it's already starting. And then once the White Sox put up that 8 spot in like the 3rd or the 4th, I just like texted back. I was like, where's my $5?
Well, look, the White Sox got Yasmani Grandal back, and he just absolutely murdered the ball in the series. And now the White Sox are at full strength offensively, which bodes well for them going forward. You combine that with awful Cubs pitching, and you know what? That's probably going to happen. The only thing that shocked me was Alec Mills pitching a near complete game shutout. But you just got to give props to him. He pitched really well. And, from a Cubs perspective, that and Patrick Wisdom is the only thing that's been fun lately. From a White Sox perspective, your offense is now all here. You haven't had your entire offense all year, and you're ready to make that run now. The only thing that I think is obvious right now for the Sox is I think Dallas Keuchel has solidified himself as the odd man out. I don't think there's any question whatsoever.
He looks bad. I don't know how you can start him in the playoffs unless things just turn around, but you're running out of real estate for him to get right.
I mean, everyone else is exponentially better. Even after that really surprising rough outing from Lance Lynn, you would still feel pretty confident in a guy who's had playoff experience and who's been the Cy Young leader throughout the entire season. One bad outing isn't going to change that. Dylan Cease is actually looking like a legit guy lately. He's been pitching much better. You're going to you got Carlos Rodon back, and he's been one of the best pitchers in the AL. And, then you got Giolito, who's been overall good, not spectacular, but, he might be your right now I'd put him as either 3 or 4. And if Giolito is your 3 or 4, then your playoff rotation is in really good shape. Dallas Keuchel doesn't make or break this team's chances to win a World Series. And I think that it's just an obvious thing to just have him be the odd man out. It's an easy choice, in my opinion, right now for Tony La Russa.
I'm going to throw this out. Is my man has a 1.59 ERA, Reynaldo Lopez.
Yeah. Yeah. Even he's a better option.
But you're right. Grandal came back, and he came back in a huge way. 4 for 6 with 8 RBIs and 2 home runs. He really paddled the Cubs in that first game.
Yeah. Crazy game, man. Just so nutty.
And just the Cubs pitching has been a disaster. Today today you just got shellacked.
Now, here's the thing about the Cub pitching. Most of it, as a Cub fan, I don't really care because most of those guys are probably not going to be on the roster next year. Or, maybe they'll tweak some things in AAA. Some of them are just minor leaguers. Some of them are trying to find their way. But what the hell is wrong with Kyle Hendricks? He has been bad. And even when he's been good, he hasn't. You look at his good stretch, you sit down and you watch the games, and you'll see a game where he went like 6 innings, 2 runs. On paper, that looks great. But you can sit down and look at the game and be like, wow, there were a lot of hard hit balls for outs. Like, is he tipping his pitches? I don't know, because it's not like the spin rate from what I've seen has dropped drastically. It's not like the walk rate and the command has changed all that much, at least based on numbers. But it looks like batters go up there now and they know what's coming and they know how to hit it. Have teams just figured him out? Is he tipping his pitches? I don't know. But if there was just one thing that truly just flabbergasted me this series and the past few months, even all year, I know a lot of those guys are minor leaguers and not good, but I mean, Kyle Hendricks, man, he's supposed to be one of your good players, and he has not been very good. I just, that was today's loss. Seeing Kyle Hendricks get roughed up was the worst for me. I know for White Sox fans it was great, but as a Cubs fan, seeing Hendricks get roughed up, that was no bueno. At least in the first game when you blew a 6-0 lead, you're like, yeah, most of these guys are kind of whatever, but Kyle Hendricks, man, ugh.
I don't know. I mean, I've just kind of grown accustomed to it at this point this season. The one that bummed me out was the Keegan Thompson not looking good.
Yeah.
Because we need him to be good.
Maybe he's just trying to work things out. I don't know. I
mean, when you have a guy like Meisinger and he stinks, all right, whatever. We didn't expect him to be good. And he's not going to be here. And Kyle Hendricks, like he'll be the elder statesman, I guess, when hopefully the Cubs are good again, but he won't be a frontline guy at that point. So I'm less concerned about that. But a guy like Keegan Thompson, or when an Albert Alzolay gets lit up, or, those are the ones where you're like, you cringe because you're like, we need these guys to be good. Mm-hmm. If the pitching in our minor league system isn't good, this rebuild is already off the rails.
Yeah, that or you have to do what you did the first time. You got to spend money to get pitching.
That's just not sustainable, man.
I know. This team's development of pitching has been a joke. It really has. And that's why I'm kind of worried about it. I mean, you look at the White Sox and they have a really nice balance of veteran guys and guys they've groomed in the minor league system. You look at Crochet and you look at Michael Kopech and you look at some of their other bullpen guys they brought up. Like, I know Bummer hasn't been good this year, but he's been good in the past. And some of those guys, and then, they bring in guys like Lance Lynn, and they finally get Carlos Rodon, one of their high draft picks from a few years back, to work out. You need that balance. It can't just be one or the other. And I mean, look at Justin Steele the other night. I know he's still a bit more raw, but he hasn't been tearing it up. What you hope is that he can work out the kinks now. And, a reason to be skeptical would be the history of developing pitching within the organization. A reason to maybe not be as worried is they don't have much sample size, and they, sometimes working things out is kind of ugly. And, maybe it'll work out, but, that's remained to be seen. But, at the end of the day, what you saw this weekend was two teams in two very different positions. Very, very, very different positions. The White Sox are getting ready to go on a World Series run. The Cubs are seeing if they can lose 100 games, and you're seeing what few pieces on the team right now can work. Patrick Wisdom has been fun as hell, and it looks like he's going to shatter that Cubs rookie home run record at the age of 29. But right now, most of your hope are teenagers in the farm that have a long way to go. And with the White Sox, you finally have your whole staff together, basically, and you want to hope that they can stay fresh and that they can get appropriate rest while not taking too much time off and just getting ready for when it matters in a month.
Yeah, and with the Cubs, I am going to sit there and cheer on like hell Patrick Wisdom to do great and Frank Schwindel to do great because they've both been really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not long-term solutions.
No, they're not.
And who knows if they're even good next year. I mean, the Cardinals let Wisdom go for like a bag of nickels.
Mm-hmm.
And, because he wasn't worth anything and he just sort of figured it out, but he figured it out real late. Same thing with Schwindel. They're both 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see them as successful long-term pieces. I'm hoping I'm wrong. It'd be nice to pick up 2 bargain basement guys and then turn them around. But, I'm just going to cheer them on for this year. And then I'm sure they'll both be on the roster next year because of they're not going to have much. But with the Cubs, I'm curious of what they're going to do in this offseason. Are they just going to stink and just stink it up and get the best draft picks they can for next year? Or are they going to try to build with short-term free agent bargains?
So this is what I wanted to talk about when it comes to the Cubs. And this is something I also wrote about for Cubby's Crib, at least part of what I'm about to say. Look, I hope Tom Ricketts understands that Cubs fandom has changed since he took over. The lovable loser thing, that ain't going to fly anymore. Wrigley Field is not going to be your saving grace like it once was. And you want some evidence? Did you see any of those Cubs Rockies games by any chance?
Nope.
Go and watch them. Go and watch and look at the stands. Maybe 12, 13, 14, 15,000 people. I get it. It's a weekday. It's a doubleheader against a bad team. But you know what? Throughout my lifetime, Wrigley Field was the place to go no matter how good or bad the team was because of that lovable loser identity. Fans pilgrimage to Wrigley Field not only for its nostalgia and its charm, but I think, and a commenter on my Cubby's Crib article pointed this out, and I think there's a lot of merit to this, that the whole lovable loser thing was like, it was like a mission. It's like you wanted to be on the journey, the long journey of rooting for the Cubs and finally seeing them win that World Series. You wanted to be there through thick and thin, through the absolute worst of it, and then be there for the absolute best of it. The lovable loser thing was supposed to be over in 2016. There's no identity. There's no mission anymore. There's no reason to now go to a ballpark to watch a bad product. But, losing was once the Cubs' identity. It's no longer that. It is now just a bad product. And like most bad products in this world, people are not going to invest in a bad product. It's just simply a bad product now. There's no charm to it. There's no nostalgia to it. There's no outlook on, we got to be here through thick and thin. It is just a bad product, and fans are not going to go like they used to. You can see the stands now. They are so much more empty. I remember as a kid in 05-06 when the White Sox won the World Series and the Cubs were terrible, but they still drew over 3 million fans at Wrigley Field for the reasons we talked about. Nowadays,
I'm looking at the attendance numbers.
Yeah,
and
look at them.
The Cubs haven't been below 32,000 well, barring last year, obviously, they haven't been below 32,000 average attendance since 1997.
Yeah, 98 with the Sosa years, pretty much through 2019, you could guarantee the place was going to be full no matter what. Even in the rebuild years. In the rebuild years in 2012, I'm pretty sure they were still top 10 in attendance.
2012, they averaged 35,500 people a game.
That's 5,000 short of a sellout. That's still pretty much full. And I get that this year's average is a little skewed because of COVID restrictions, but you don't have to look at the numbers this year. Just look at if you turn on the game and you look at the stands at Wrigley Field, all you need is the eye test. You don't need charts. You don't need numbers. You don't need rankings. You just do the eye test and you see the empty ballpark. Fans don't want to invest in this because more than ever, it's more expensive to go to a Cubs game. And look, resale tickets now are like going for like $6, but still paying for parking is expensive. You take a family. The concessions are expensive, more expensive than ever. No matter how expensive or inexpensive the tickets are, it's still more expensive than ever to go to Wrigley Field to go to a ball game. And if the product is bad, why would you go? Why would you want to watch it? And even if Wrigley Field has been updated, which needed to happen, I'm not going to lambaste the Ricketts for updating the park itself, but you, the Ricketts, chose to invest in real estate and a sports book. You are doing this to gain profits, and you're business people. I get that. But what you need to understand is if you want to maximize profit, you cannot continue this nickel and dime stuff when it comes to the roster. This offseason, you need to spend. You need to bring in talent. If you are going to sit there and you are going to tell us that this rebuild is going to be quick, spend some goddamn money and show the fans you give a shit, because they are not going to show up next year if you don't spend money and you don't improve the team. I don't think the team is going to be great next year or contending, but you need to make the product at least watchable. And right now, you sold off. You're in the very beginnings of this rebuild. Yeah, it's going to look bad. I get it. For the rest of the year, it's going to look bad. But what this needs to show the Ricketts is, you went down this path, this rebuilding path. This is how it's going to look at the beginning. Okay, look at the stands. You can't keep this up. You cannot keep doing this. You need to improve as soon as possible, or the fans are not going to come like they used to.
I agree with you. The times are changing. Everything is too expensive and too big. You know, you can maintain being a bad team and still selling out for the Bears and the Bulls and maybe the Blackhawks, because those are nighttime games where corporations buy tickets to bring their clients. The Cubs play a whole lot of afternoon games, and there's not enough boxes. It's not really conducive to going and bringing clients. So you have fans, and if you're not winning, you're right. We have changed the mentality of this whole fan base, and that's good, but that means you have to keep producing winners. And I don't think they're going to, I mean, honestly, I'm okay with them not going out and signing top tier free agents, because that's going to handcuff you, and you don't know what your core is looking like. You don't know what the skeleton is. But I think you need to at least bring in the best of the 1 and 2 guys you can get on 1-2 year deals, like the Marcus Semyons, players like that. I think those are the players where they give you a competitive team until you can start bringing up your farm system and figuring out what it is you have. Because if you go and lock in a position, is what, you know, on right now is really you could sign any free agent, and everywhere you have a hole. But, you'd be like, okay, well, then you start thinking, if we sign a second baseman, well, then what was the point of trading Craig Kimbrell? Because we brought in Nicky Two Strikes. You're like, well, we expected him to be our regular contributor at second base. So maybe we don't want to sign a second baseman. And then you're like, all right, well, third base. What are we going to do with Patrick Wisdom? Because he's one of the better players that we do have right now. If we bring in a center fielder, all right, where do we do with Brennan Davis? Because he's coming up. Can't slow him. We can't block him. You start figuring out, like, you don't know what the minor league class is going to look like. You don't want to bring in somebody that you're going to have to bring in. Like, I guess if you say you want Chris Bryant, you want to bring him back. All right, then that's what you're going to do.
That. Good luck with that. He's not coming back.
No, I don't think so. I had hope before they traded him. I don't see any way he comes back.
He loves San Fran, and good for him. Let him stay there. I am going to, I don't know if I agree or disagree, but I say, if you want to show us you're serious about turning this around fast, go get Marcus Stroman. Go out there and get a legitimate ace. Because this bullshit that you call a pitching staff, enough. Go out there and show us you're serious. Or the fans are not going to come back. Because you know what? It doesn't help with all the other crap on top of this. People are fed up with a number of things that the Ricketts have done or said. But at the end of the day, none of the other stuff would matter if the team was winning. Team was winning, fans are there.
I'm going to throw in something else. This might be controversial.
Mm-hmm.
For next season, you pay Jason Hayward to go away.
Yeah. What does he serve at this point?
His defense is not good enough to keep him on this roster. His offense is terrible. He makes a lot of money. You're going to pay him anyway. Just pay him, send him on his way. Let him go. And give those at-bats and that playing time to somebody else to see what you have. Because you already know what you have in Jason Hayward. You already know, and you don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I don't think that's controversial at all. I don't think it's controversial at all.
I don't even care about, offset language or anything in a buyout. I just pay him and just let him go.
Here's your money. Thanks for the 2016 speech. Good luck. I think they got to. Jed Hoyer's got to do a Garpax cleanse at this point. What Arturas Karnisovas has done. You just got to weed it out. You really want to start fresh. Start fresh. They need a new approach on everything. Because look at what some of these ex-Cubs are doing. Look at what Kyle Schwarber is doing. Look what he's doing. He's playing like we all thought he was going to. Chris Bryant looks great in San Fran. Small size to Rizzo, he's looked pretty good.
Javi Baez.
Yeah, there's some things with him and the Mets fans. But I'm not saying everyone is amazing, but I just can't help it. The approach of development that this team has had, they messed with Jason Hayward. Look what happened. Look at all the guys who started off strong and fizzled out. Almora, Hap, even though he's played better recently. Schwarber, even. There are so many things wrong with this organization. But as we look forward, we have to say what we have said about the Bears for all these years. It all starts at the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just pray that Tom Ricketts understands how the fans are feeling, because you saw them that, ooh, look at this nice Hall of Fame. We're going to pat ourselves in the back. Yeah, that's great. I hope you understand that fans' nostalgia for Wrigley Field isn't going to put the butts in the seats like it used to. Is the ceiling and the floor going to be different for the Cubs compared to other teams like the Marlins, the Pirates? Yeah, it's never going to be Pirates, Marlins, Rangers bad, but it is going to be a far cry from where it's at. If you're getting 15 to 20,000 at Wrigley Field on a daily basis, when you're used to drawing 30 plus over the past near 30 years, that's a far cry from where it is. And even for this year, if people bought the tickets and there's no shows, well, not only does the no-shows show that people are apathetic about the team, but you're also not getting that concession souvenir revenue, which is a nice big chunk of that. And your precious marquee network, if people aren't watching the games, you're not getting as good of a return on that. So realize where you are, practice what you are preaching. If you really think that they are going to get better quicker, then you have to invest in the team. And don't talk to me about biblical losses when you open up a frickin' sports book, betting what people do on their smartphones these days. Just don't give me that. Show us you care and invest in the team. Do it like you did before 2016 when you actually had a big payroll and you spent on guys. Realize that 2016 investment that you thought was going to last a lifetime might not last the lifetime you thought, just like a bunch of your other investments that have kind of fallen off from where you expected. And that's all I'm going to say.
I have, if you could build a team right now, like gearing up for the playoffs, comprised of all of the Chicago players, like all of the Cubs roster and the White Sox roster is your pool, you could construct a roster. What would your roster look like?
Mostly White Sox players, to be honest. I mean, like if I'm looking at my rotation, my ace would be Lance Lynn. I would have Carlos Rodon. I would have Lucas Giolito. I would have Dylan Cease, and Kyle Hendricks would probably be my 5 starter at this point.
I think that's fair.
Catching, I think that's Contreras and Grandal. Those two. That's fair, right?
Yeah.
First base, Jose Abreu.
Yeah.
Second base, let's just say for all intents and purposes, he's healthy. Nicky Two Strikes.
But he's not because we're talking right now.
Well, okay, if he's not, then I mean Cesar Hernandez has kind of fallen off a cliff since he came. But Nico Horner's hurt too, so you can't really use him. Who else would be Matt Duffy? Duffy's a bench guy in my opinion. So I guess Cesar Hernandez.
I mean, yeah, I guess your options. Bodie's hurt.
Yep.
That was a brutal injury.
Yeah.
I guess Hernandez is your second baseman for now.
For now, I mean he's a power bat, so okay.
Yeah. Shortstop, obviously Tim Anderson.
Moncada at third.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean Patrick Wisdom has the power, but Moncada is a much better ball player. Let's be real.
Yeah, I mean at least you have a conversation there, somewhat of a conversation.
You could put Patrick Wisdom on your bench.
Center field,
Luis Robert.
Yep. And left field, Eloy.
Yep.
Right field, Andrew Vaughn.
Yeah. Not Jason Hayward. No.
I'm gonna say Contreras is your catcher. Grandal is your DH.
Yeah, that I could go with that.
So you've got 2 Cubs in the starters.
Yep.
And maybe you could dig a few more in with the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main Cubs contribution would be your bench. Matt Duffy and Patrick Wisdom could be two of your bench players.
Ortega's having a nice year.
Ortega, sure. Yeah, you could throw Ortega in there. And then maybe Ian Happ. He's looking much better lately.
He is.
I'll give him that.
I'm going to sneak my guy Frank Schwindel in there.
Okay, I guess. Okay.
You're back up first baseman.
Yeah.
Slash DH. But yeah, really, you have the White Sox with, I mean, the one spot where we could use some help here at second base, and the Cubs are just like, cupboard's bare, man. The cupboard is bare.
I mean, I'm glad we have our second baseman in the future, but we're not going to see him until spring.
I mean, we got a ton of second basemen. I mean, we got Nico Horner, we got Nicky Two Strikes, we've got David Bodie.
They're all hurt.
They're all hurt.
They're all hurt. They're all hurt. But luckily, for the White Sox, they are not hurt, and you just hope that they can maintain that for the last month.
You hope. I mean, that's really what is going to slow down this White Sox. I mean, I get it. Your pitching's hit a slump, and all at the same time, but we've seen that when the Cubs were really good. And
it happens.
You at least have enough guys where you have a bunch of guys that can be a streak stopper.
Oh, sure.
When the Cubs get on a bad stretch of losing games, anybody, I guess, could potentially, be a streak stopper, but you don't have anybody that like you feel confident that they could be. Where the White Sox, you're like, oh, Rodon could easily come out and pitch a complete game no hitter. Lance Lynn can throw a 2-hit game.
Well, look at today with Dylan Cease, where you saw both Dallas Keuchel and Lance Lynn get teed off, and then he comes in today, only gives up 1 run.
Yeah. So you have almost an entire rotation of guys that could be a streak stopper if need be.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Like, Cease came in, pitched 6 innings, sprinkled 4 hits, 1 run, 11 strikeouts, only 2 walks. It's a pretty damn good outing.
Yeah, I would say so. I would absolutely say so. So I have one White Sox question for you when it comes to pitching.
Okay.
Does Craig Kimbrell, is that concerning? Because he has not been good.
The guy needs to close.
Yeah.
I think we're establishing that. I think he's got to be your closer. Ryan Tepera has been great. For the White Sox.
Yes, he has.
I think you need to be, Craig Kimbrell's got to come in there in a clutch situation to be your closer in that 9th inning. I think there's a mentality thing there. And Liam Hendricks is going to have to be the guy that flexes into the 8th or the 7th and 8th. I think that's the way you're going to have to work it.
Yeah. I mean, you got to put him in the best possible spot. We've seen him in the 8th inning. That hasn't worked out well, and he gave up 3 runs. Even though it was a garbage time, it didn't mean much. So maybe don't buy much into that. But when you've seen some of the struggles in the 8th, I think that's kind of where you say you got to move him to where he's most comfortable. But at the same time, you also want to say big time reliever, get outs. But I do agree with you. He does need to close.
I think, I think the psychology of a closer is something I'll never understand, but you sort of just have to take it for what it is at face value.
Yeah.
Anything else baseball you want to talk about?
Yeah, there is some drama with Baez in New York.
Yeah, I'm reading about that.
They just released a statement. Hold on. I got to see this. I got to share this with y'all. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Quote, In a post-game press conference today, Javi Baez stated that his thumbs down gesture during the game was a message to fans who recently have booed him and other players for poor performance. These comments and any gestures by him or other players with a similar intent are totally unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Mets fans are understandably frustrated over the team's recent performance. The players and the organization are equally as frustrated, but fans at Citi Field have every right to express their own disappointment. Booing is every fan's right. The Mets will not tolerate any player gesture that is unprofessional in its meaning or its directive in a negative way towards our fans. I will be meeting with our players and staff to convey this message directly. Mets fans are loyal, passionate, knowledgeable, and more than willing to express themselves. We love them, every one of these, for these qualities. We love them for every one of these qualities, I should say. End quote.
Wow. Yeah, that is not good. And, you know, New York fans are brutal. They're very similar to Philly fans in that regard. And
the media is just as bad too.
The media is way worse. Philadelphia media is pretty bad, but
they're not that bad compared to New York.
There's some guys that are like Howard Eskin. They're just absolutely brutal. They will tear your head off. But New York as a whole is it's a tough place to play, man.
Whether it's the Mets, the Yankees, the Giants, the Jets, the Rangers, the Islanders, it's tough.
And the Mets players are not doing themselves any favors by being bad. They're 7 games out of the wild card right now.
Yeah, I mean, they were supposed to go on a run this year.
I'm looking at the standings, man. The Mets not only are 7 games out, but they would have to leapfrog the Phillies, the Cardinals, the Padres, and the Reds.
That's tough.
And I think they're mathematically eliminated from leapfrogging the Dodgers, because they are 18 and a half games behind the Dodgers with that first wild card.
Yeah. I think that's accurate. Yikes. And you know what's funny is when people were trying to hype up the Mets, I just say the same thing. They're the Mets. They're still the Mets. Even with a new owner, they're still the Mets. And what's happening? They're Metsing.
Cubs are only 14 games out of the wild card.
That's it. I think they're battling right now with the Rockies and the Marlins, I think, like around that 5th spot for the upcoming draft, I believe. I think 5th is going to be the best they can do. Because
Probably.
The other 4 teams are going to like lose well over 100 games.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they still have a better record than Washington, Miami, Pittsburgh, Arizona, Baltimore, and Texas.
Yeah, they're not going to catch Baltimore, or Texas, or Arizona, or Pittsburgh.
No, they'll probably get moved past Washington, possibility the Marlins, but the best they could do is the 5th pick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the Marlins, you know, maybe we see, I don't really know where a lot of their prospects are, but they got a loaded farm system. So, you know, maybe they bring up some of their prospects and they start playing a little better in September. Who knows?
We're really rapidly wrapping up this season.
I know.
And yeah, we're like what, 30 games left roughly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a month left. We're at the end of August. We're already a week away from like Labor Day, which is hard to believe.
Yeah, so we're like 30 games left, and we're starting to to solidify what the playoffs look like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The White Sox are going to win that division.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa and New York are going to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Houston is going to make the playoffs, and probably the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Basically Oakland's it's on life support, but the Giants, Dodgers will make the playoffs. The Milwaukee Brewers will make the playoffs. Atlanta will make the playoffs. And then it's probably, unless you get some magic from St. Louis here, it's going to either be Cincinnati or Padres.
Yeah. Yeah. The Cardinals lost a brutal one today. They were up 3-1 and then gave up a walk-off 3-run home run. So they've lost some games to the Pirates the past week or so. So there's still some magic to be had, maybe, but they might be fading.
Yeah. So, the playoff picture by odds, the Rays 99.7% that they will make the playoffs. Yankees 96.4, Red Sox 85.2
for the Yankees. Wow.
Of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, wow. Like, it seemed like just yesterday they were on the outside looking in.
Yeah. What did they just win, like 15 in a row?
Yeah, they've been on fire since the trade deadline.
Yeah. The White Sox have 100% probability of making the playoffs.
I mean, that's no surprise.
Astros 98.2, Athletics only 11.1. So really, the Blue Jays have a 7.7 and Athletics have 11.1. Those are dwindling percentages. Braves are 85.7, Phillies 20.1, Mets 2.4, Brewers 100%, Reds 64%, Cardinals 4.7%, Dodgers and Giants 100%, Padres 22.9. So, it's looking like it's going to be the Reds making that, with the Mets are on life support, and the Phillies and the Padres better get their asses in gear if they want to make it. But there's not a lot of teams with any probability left in here.
Yeah, I mean, boy, have the Padres fallen apart or what? But their pitching has all gotten hurt, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox right now are looking at magic numbers.
Yeah, no, I mean, they don't have to worry about not making the postseason. They've already made it.
Yeah. The White Sox current, let's see, magic number. Magic numbers. Come on, what's the White Sox? I think it's like 24. Yeah. White Sox magic number is 24.
Oh, there you go.
And they got about 30 games left.
Yeah, it'll be easy.
If you don't have any more baseball things, I have one other topic I want to mention.
I think I have an idea of what it is, but go ahead.
AK and Mark Eversley were goddamn geniuses in their ability to get a first round pick for Lauri Markkanen.
They are officially my new favorite executives in this town.
They got a first round pick for Lauri Markkanen. They created a market. They did a sign and trade, moved him in a 3-way trade. And that's impressive. They
got a player back too.
Yeah. So, yeah, they got Derek Jones Jr. So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I mean, you're like, all right, they gave up a lot to get some of the other players that they got, but then they just like, man, we'll get a first round pick for Lauri Markkanen. And I thought there was no way that was going to happen.
When I saw that trade, like I had to rub my eyes and make sure that was real. I'm like, holy shit, that is awesome. Like I was so happy when I saw that. And I wish Lauri nothing but the best, but it was clear that his days as a Bull were done. And the fact that AK was just able to restock a draft pick and get a player in return, I'm just like, you are a god, AK. You are a god among men.
Yeah. And plus you cleared cap space, because you had a cap hold with Lauri Markkanen, and you were able to get rid of that too. So you're able to bring in another player if need be.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if he goes out and gets another nice role player for them.
Yeah. So the Bulls receive Derek Jones Jr., a 2022 first round pick from Portland, and a 2023 second round pick from Cleveland.
Love it.
We knew Lauri Markkanen was going to be gone, but not only did they let him go, they let him go not for nothing.
Yeah.
They gave up 2 first rounders from the Vucevic deal. So 21 and 23. They gave up their 2025 first round pick for DeMar DeRozan. So they were down multiple first round picks, and they were able to recoup one here.
Yeah. I love seeing it. And you know what's crazy is the only remaining players from the Garpax era are Zach LaVine and Kobe White. Those are the only 2 that are left. Patrick Williams is now the 3rd longest tenured Bull. Like, he took this roster and completely flipped it.
Yeah. And the player they got is he's not a star player, but he's an athletic guy that's going to be a useful piece playing for them. He's athletic, forward, runs the floor hard. He's a decent player.
Yeah, I mean, you can make use of him. He's not just like some Cristiano Felicio type player. This is a guy you can actually use.
And the funny thing is he was on the Bulls' radar before that. They got the guy that they wanted and gave up a guy that they didn't want and got a first and a second round pick out of it. Like, that is
So
that
awesome.
How do you do that?
There's a reason that when the Bulls hired Arturas Karnisovas, that it was just praise all around from every expert, ex-player. Everyone was saying, Chicago Bulls, you're getting a great one. And we are already seeing that. Like, it's exciting. It really is exciting. And I can't remember the last time I've looked forward to Bulls basketball like I am now.
This is going to be a markedly better team this year than last year.
And honestly, just you listen to the players and the personnel who have come here because they've wanted to come here. And they all say similar things. We love the vision of Arturas Karnisovas. We are buying into his plan. Could you say that about Garpax? Do you think they were going out, impressing people? I mean, they were, you had the big Carmelo Anthony welcome party. You make the United Center look all spick and span to try to bring in Carmelo Anthony, where here's Arturas Karnisovas saying, here's what we're doing. Here's our vision. Here's our goal. And people are buying into it.
It's nice to feel like we are actually a place that could be a destination.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, remember when they got Billy Donovan? People didn't think that he was a possibility for the Bulls. They thought, he's probably going to go to somewhere that's a bit more established, like the Indiana Pacers or something like that. And next thing you know, AK brings him in.
Yeah, I like the move. I like that They have a good rapport with players. And, part of that is you have an actual coach, a legitimate coach. Part of it is you have a legitimate guy in AK. Part of it is Mark Eversley has an amazing relationship with players.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start putting a winning ball club on the court, you're going to have, such a destination spot. I mean, it used to be people were like, oh, everyone wants to play for the marquee franchises. They want to play for the Lakers. They want to play for the Knicks. They want to play for the Bulls. They want to play for the Celtics. That's not the case anymore. And the Knicks, people don't want to go to the Knicks because the Knicks stink and they're a dysfunctional franchise. And, the Lakers are good and they have LeBron James, but they're kind of, that could fall apart real quick over there. The Bulls could really establish themselves as a destination city again for the first time since Michael Jordan retired.
Yeah.
And even before that, they were not a destination for free agents. All the big guys mostly came from the draft. Everybody else were bench guys, your Ron Harpers, and they were starters, but they weren't your frontline guys. They weren't the your star players. Your Luke Longleys and your Will Purdue's and Dennis Rodman they brought over in a trade, but you didn't bring in free agents per se, like big name free agents. So I can't remember when the Bulls were a destination per se.
And that is exactly what AK wanted to do the second he got here. He established the fact that he wanted to make this a destination for people to want to come here. Not because of the city and the name that's attached to it, but because it is a good winning culture. We have not had that here for a very long time. The culture has been toxic and dysfunctional. He is just trying to weed that out. And props to AK for saying, you know what? We can't just make this a slow process and try to build something that's not there. We just got to just shove this all out of the way, and we got to build a new foundation with a new identity. I love that. Weed it out. Weed out the bad, bring in the good.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Or share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, Alex Pat Sports Chat.blogspot.com or Facebook, Alex Pat Sports Chat. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down, I wanna